What's up, YouTube? Have you ever wanted to level up your next Teams meeting, Zoom call, business meeting, virtual thing, or even if you're a new gamer, if you wanted to level it up, this is where you need to be. This is the video for you. So stick around and let's get into it. All right. So I've done some videos on how to do a lower third within OBS. I've done a lot of some videos on how to even install them. I'll leave a link in the description. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to go to OBS Studio. You're going to download the appropriate version, whether it be for Mac or for a Windows computer, and you're going to install it. The install is a little bit different, but it's essentially the same. One, you're using an executable. The other one, you're going to be using a DMG. It installs. Once it installs, everything that I'm going to talk about here today is going to be relevant. But we're going to go to the basics, level 1. What is OBS? What is it? How am I going to do what is it used for? Essentially, OBS Studio organizes and compiles everything that you want to push across a video stream, whether it be for a stream or for a video broadcast or for a team, like I said, Teams call or whatever the case may be. So we're going to create everything together. So if you've ever watched some people and they have a lower third at the bottom, or even if you see this thing right up here, it's literally not really there. It's just video overlays. You can do that for free with a tool called OBS Studios. And here's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get into this real quick. So first off, we've created a scene. You hit the plus sign, and then you have the minus sign. You can move it up priority wise up to the top or to the bottom right here. All right. Okay. And so the next part is the source. We have to identify the source, and that'll be the different items, and I'll go through those here in a little bit. And then the other item is the virtual camera, which I mentioned before, and I'll show you how that shows up on the other side. So let's go through this first. So if I select the plus sign, audio input capture is going to be the audio that we're bringing into the system, usually the microphones from different ones. If you had multiple microphones, like here, I have multiple microphones. I have a microphone above the camera. I have one here. I have a lavalier mic over here. So if I have multiple microphones, I would go ahead and use that to compile them all together to send it across the video stream. If I had more than one person here in my office, I could do that. The next item we'll see is audio output capture. That's going to be more of your game capture. If you had your system has an audio that's going through it, you would do that. If you had a presentation that had audio in it, maybe you want to push that audio across. There you go. Browser is obviously what it sounds like, a browser, but it's not going to be a browser that you can interact with. It's just going to bring up the browser screen. A color source, I'll show you that. It's just going to be a color, whatever color you want. You can do it in gradient colors. If you wanted to create a manual lower third, display capture is obviously what it sounds like. You're going to capture the entire display or capture a display. Okay. And image is obviously if you wanted to have an image in the background, right? You could do that. You can, so I say if I wanted to take a picture of this, there's an actual trick where you can take a regular webcam and make it blurry and then put it in behind you, and that would just be like from a green screen. So you would just put a green screen behind you, put the image on it, and it would display there. I'll link. There's actually a video that's already out there that's really great. I'll actually link it in the description as well. The next item I'll talk about is a media source and the media or a slideshow. So once again, if you had something along the lines of that would be similar to like a PowerPoint presentation where you have like if you're doing a demonstration or a sales call or something along those lines, and you're actually doing, this is what, like image after image, right? Maybe that's what you would do. Like you're describing these images from a demonstration perspective. Maybe you would do it that way. Maybe you had your PowerPoint presentation in images and you can go and talk about it that way. There's a whole bunch of things you can do, but basically it's a compilation of images together. Okay. Next one is going to be a media source, which is going to be a video. And that can be used for a lower third or what's called an animated lower third, or even just a picture in the background. I have a couple of them where I have a green screen, and when I have the green screen going on, and right behind me is a globe that's spinning, right? I used to actually have a TV behind me, and it would be all green. And so when I played the video of me, I would actually just put the green screen, and I would just, size it up to me right there. The next one is going to be a scene. If you had you could have multiple scenes together. So now we created one scene. You can have a scene inside of a scene. Remember, a box inside of a box, right? So say this is my streaming overall scene, which is here. And then in that scene, I had my podcast in one, and then I had my Toro Tech channel here on another, and you can turn them on and off depending upon what you need. SYPHON, there's an add-on feature, or there's an add-on tool that you can install on Windows as well as on Mac to create. It's another tool called the SYPHON, which will then grab an application and stream the specific application as well, like BlueStacks. It's really good with BlueStacks, things along those lines. Text is going to be if you wanted to create text across the screen. I'll show you that as well. Kind of if you're going to create that manual, manual lower third. Then you have your video capture device, which is what we see here through the actual camera, whatever camera it may be, if you have more than one. This is really helpful if you're doing an online demonstration at home, or even if you're doing a game stream. I don't want to forget them. And I'm looking at you from this camera, and then as I'm demonstrating to you, I switch to my screen. But if there was another camera to this side over here, I could have clicked over to this one, and when I hit it, the camera here shows me here. And so now I'm always looking at the people that I'm demonstrating or presenting to. So if you had more than one camera, right now I just have the one camera set up. I'm moving things around, but anyway, one camera here, one camera here. Or if you had an over-the-shoulder camera, which I have one over here, it's not set up, but I have an over-the-shoulder one. I had it hooked up into this. You can click that and then say that it would then show over the shoulder, in front, and so you can do a bunch of different things with a lot of different cameras if you really wanted to get your Martin Scorsese kind of jazz, juices going. And then you have the window capture, which is just capturing the entire window, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many windows you have open, or however many screens you have. All right, so we're going to take a look and see how does it look in real life. So remember, we wanted to talk about that animated lower third. All it is I've already selected it, and if you click on it again, you'll actually be able to see what the lower third is. You have the option to loop it. You have the option to restart when it's active, and then show nothing when the playback ends. So we'll just hit this. I'll hit OK. And what'll happen is you see that now that it's playing right there. Now it should loop when it's done if it needs to, but right, and it's going to keep playing. Or if you have a lower third that doesn't have what's called a build out, there's a build in and then there's a build out. So when you create your lower thirds, you can use Adobe Premiere, you can use Final Cut Pro, whatever it is. Generally with these lower thirds that you build, you can you'll have a build in where it graphically builds up into it and then graphically builds out of it. What I generally do is I'll build it, I'll export it to where that it's transparent, and then I will trim it to where that it cuts out the build out, or within the Final Cut Pro, you can take it to where it does not build out at that moment either. Okay. So we're going to go ahead back in here, and here we can do the main reason we're doing this is to add a camera, right? So we can do this. I can go and say, cam link. So we'll do that. And then I will turn it on, and boom, just like that, there I am. So that would be the first piece that we would do that. So now if I went over to Teams, and now that in Teams, we can see that this is what we're showing and what's going to come across within the video stream. That's not good enough though. So we want to go ahead and add a couple different things. So let's say we want to add a color source. I'll add purple. It points that out. We'll go ahead and click that, and then boom, just like that, we have a color source or a border. The one thing with the color source I will point out is that it'll be oversized, and that's okay. just bring it down to the bottom of the screen. Whatever you see within this blue box is what will actually be displayed across the video stream. So whatever you see across there. All right. So now the next item that we'll talk about is the lower third. Now, remember, we can go ahead and hit plus, and we can go ahead and hit text. And then when that text happens, what we'll see is, well, you'll pick your font, you'll pick your text, and then you'll add the whatever it is. And then you hit OK, and it's there. Now, if you wanted to add a little bit, so you don't have the tools or the know-how to create the animated lower third, what's a really cool thing is you add a secondary text. And when you add a secondary text, just like that, boom, now you have a 3D text of whatever it is that you want to show, right? So maybe it's your name or whatever, and it's just built in directly. Okay, so now we have an animated lower third. We have the animated lower third that's over here, right? And it's kind of not showing, and we have our color. Okay, now if we go back to Teams, just like that, we go back to Teams, it shows our lower third and what we're talking about. So now that I go to demonstrate, if I was to go ahead into this meeting, it would then be showing this for the meeting. Now you probably say to yourself, it looks backwards. If you look at any of the other videos I talk about, it will always show backwards. It's a thing within Teams that'll actually flip it. But when it presents on the other side to the user or to the recording or the stream, it will show backwards, but it's perfectly how it's supposed to be. Do a real quick rundown of this piece, right? So we have the lower, so these are our scenes. We have a virtual camera. These are our audio in between in the beginning here. Now there is an opportunity within this to, if you have the option, you can also show what's called Studio. So in Studio, you can say new scene, and then you would transition, and now this is what's about to be shown, what's on the left-hand side, and then this is showing within Teams. The problem with this is it's actually showing two video streams, double the CPU almost, or a little bit under double, but a lot more CPU utilization when you do this, and so it's pretty tough on the system. So what I generally do is I'll make sure that this is the only thing up, and I'll turn off studio mode. If you have a laptop that can handle that, please feel free. There's not a lot to add to it unless you're producing it. If you're like in production, like you're not on camera, say you're a third party that's sitting off camera and you're producing it for other individuals, that might be helpful to have that preview. So you know what you queue it up and then you go live with it. That's something that I could see that you would do. But if you're doing a single show, a one-man show or one-man band, so to speak, not really needed. You're going to double your CPU utilization. So that's how to set it up. Now I want to go to one last piece of it, which is going to be the settings and what I use for my settings that might help you. Okay, so we're going to go right down here to click settings. And when we click settings, we're going to go down to audio. Well, audio. Now audio is going to be, as I was mentioning, right? If you have your desktop audio, your game audio is coming through, or you have multiple sources like that. You have your microphones, multiple microphones. You can bring them in. If I bring this down, this is the cam link audio, and then this is the audio from the microphone that I'm using, or I can use the microphone from the MacBook Air that I'm using, whatever the case may be. Okay, so I don't usually mess with this too much. I'll generally go here to video before I start it, and I'll make sure that I put a base canvas. I generally use a 1280 by 720. That'll generally translate across to a lot of other computers. The worst thing that you really want to do is set it so high, because I got a 5K monitor, whatever the case is, 4K monitor, and then when you're displaying it or you're streaming it, you're in a meeting, half of, or more than half, is off the screen because they don't have that. So set it to the lowest common denominator. Set it 1280 by 720 is usually a pretty safe bet. I generally use a 30 frames per second, but if you have a computer that's having a hard time with that, lower the frames down to 24, 23.95, and you should be good to go. Okay, so that's that. And then the next piece I do is the output. If I'm doing a recording, a stream, things along those lines, I generally will change this video bitrate. Now my bitrate is set really high. This is generally only needs to be 3500 roughly. And you should be good with that. And then the last piece is you'll set your recording format for if you're doing a recording, you would want to create this piece right here. And that would be what the audio form would be that you wanted to come out, and whether it be MP4, MOV, WAV, whatever, that's what you would set that piece in there. The next thing I want to show you real quick is going to be the last thing that I suggest if you have another computer to have this up and displayed on, or not another computer, another screen. If you don't worry about it. It's always nice to have. And that's going to be your stats. I'm going to go ahead and the piece right here, and it's going to be the overall frames per second, or the stats. If you have another monitor, I generally put this up on the other monitor, and then you can see, you know, am I missing any or am I good? See, all right, now I have 30 frames per second, and it says since I've started this, let's go ahead and try, we'll reset it and see where we're at. And it can say that my average render time is 14.7 or 13 milliseconds, and I don't have any render lag at this point. Now, if I start to bring up other screens, maybe I will, but I don't at this point. So, with that being said, if you found this content to be useful, please hit like, comment below, smash a subscribe, and as always, hit the little bell so that you're notified when new content pops up and comes out. And without further ado, that is basics of OBS Studio and how to level up your next business call or stream. So without further ado, this is the Toro Tech, and until next time, peace.